the next episode of Breaking the Law. We are continuing our Final Fantasy IX Cycle of Rebirth miniseries by looking at two sets of beings that have a huge effect on it, the Black Mages and the Genomes. So sit back, grab some Lorios, and let's get started. The Black Mage's story begins about a year before the events of Final Fantasy IX. In order to push his own goals, Kuja approaches Queen Brahne with the promise of attaining great power by obtaining all of the kingdom's sacred jewels. With such words, he is able to manipulate her into breaking the alliance of each kingdom and become the ruler of the Mist Continent. In order to accomplish this, he explains to Queen Brahne that she will need two things, the first being Garnet's Eidolons once she turns 16, and the other is an army of magical beings, and thus begins their plan of action to conquer the Mist Continent. Kuja presents Queen Brahne with the concept of the Black Mages, creating them to join her own army to allow her to conquer Bermesia and Limblum. It is unknown if Kuja showed Queen Brahne an early prototype and what it can do, but either way she agrees to use them for her personal gain. It would be impossible to keep such a large army a secret within Alexandria, so a plan is made to enlist the aid of the village of Dali to keep the Black Mages a secret. Queen Brahne orders the mayor to build a secret underground factory that will be run by the villagers, where the Black Mages are manufactured. These were then placed in barrels and transported directly to Alexandria Castle via the cargo ship. In order to produce the Black Mages, strange machines were built underneath the village, which I'll get into a little later as to how they work. During one of the cargo ship's flights between Dali and Alexandria to deliver barrels full of Black Mages, one of the prototypes falls overboard and down below the mist into the forest near Trino. It doesn't appear again until a month later, when a cube by the name of Quan fishes up the prototype from below the mist. Not knowing what the Black Mage was, Quan thought it was too scrawny and decided to take care of it, with the ultimate plan that one day he could eat it. But after 6 months, the Black Mage had not changed at all. The Black Mage had no idea of Quan's intentions and happily lived in the dwelling, learning the ways of the world and how to communicate, and eventually calling Quan Grandpa. At some point, Quan gave up his plan to eat the Black Mage and decided to name it, giving him the name Vivi. Unfortunately, sadness struck in the dwelling as Quan began to not eat and soon lost his life, leaving Vivi all alone. After a week, Vivi left to explore and discover what he can about the world. He arrives in the city of Trino and learns about a play that will be occurring in Alexandria to celebrate the birthday of Princess Garnet. Vivi purchases a ticket and hitches a ride on a noble's airship to Alexandria, where the story of Final Fantasy IX begins. Vivi is involved in many of the instances going forward, however I will only be covering those that link to him as the Black Mage, rather than covering his whole story. The next Black Mage incident occurs in the Ice Cavern. Towards its exit, a strange snowstorm causes the party to collapse. Hearing a strange bell, Zidane awakens and is met by a Black Mage, but he is vastly different to Vivi. He is a large hunched over Black Mage with wings sprouting from his back, holding a bell that seems to amplify his magic power. Named Black Waltz No. 1, he attempts to kill Zidane, calling forth a sea lion to aid him in the fight, ultimately losing and dying in the process. Zidane returns to make sure the others are alright. He decides not to tell them about the Black Waltz and they continue to the exit of the Ice Cavern. Finding themselves above the mist, they head down to the village of Dali where its inhabitants are shocked by Vivi being there. While exploring the village, Vivi is kidnapped and taken below ground to a hidden storage. Thankfully, Zidane and Garnet find their way down there, and Garnet realises the barrels they encounter have an emblem that she has seen in Alexandria Castle. The two head further in and discover that the villagers have sealed Vivi inside a box. Zidane helps him escape, and it is here they discover the secret underground factory. As mentioned earlier, Queen Brahne had this factory created in order to manufacture all the Black Mages that she would need to conquer the Mist Continent. We see a series of strange machines. One sits behind a door siphoning mist into it, which is passed to another machine that creates strange fabricated eggs, with the last machine used to hatch these eggs, creating lifeless Black Mage dolls that are processed and placed into barrels, ready to be transported to Alexandria Castle. At this point in the story, we are completely unaware about the effect this is having on Gaia's cycle of rebirth, but this is the first sign that something is not right. Previously to this, we just assumed that Black Mages were part of life on Gaia. By this point of the story, we have seen Vivi and Black Waltz number 1 with the classic Final Fantasy Black Mage design. Even Steiner mentions Vivi being a Black Mage during the Evil Forest rescue, so to us it would seem that they are known on Gaia, or that black magic is common throughout different beings. But seeing the lifeless dolls makes us question everything we know about what Black Mages are, and why they are being born from mist eggs, leaving Vivi depressed and silent. This state is put on hold by the appearance of Black Waltz number 2. Like its predecessor, Black Waltz number 2 has a more demonic appearance than a regular Black Mage, with its elongated body, wings and horns extruding from its steepled hat. It states that it is more powerful than number 1, striking fast at Zidane, Vivi and Steiner, and even countering any of Vivi's spells with more powerful ones. It is here we learn the purpose of the Black Waltzes, to take Princess Garnet back to the castle. However, Black Waltz number 2 soon perishes. Vivi begins to question his existence from this point, even asking Zidane his opinion on the subject, before the cargo ship begins to leave and they have to rush on board. Inside the cargo ship, we see Black Mages actually moving around like Vivi. However, they are void of any emotion and seem to lack the ability to speak. All of Vivi's attempts to interact with them fail and his sadness continues. As the ship turns, we are introduced to Black Waltz number 3, watching and ready to strike. Black Waltz number 3 lands on the cargo ship to attack Vivi and take Princess Garnet back, but something strange happens. We see the Black Mages stand in front of Vivi to protect him. However, this is futile as the Black Waltz number 3 uses his magic to destroy them, causing them to lose their lives, with those being transported in the barrels to Alexandria Castle falling into the mist below. A scene that really breaks my heart anytime I see it, and one that captures Vivi's sorrow. In anger, Vivi rushes the Black Waltz and enters trance with Zidane and Steiner aiding him. Out of the 3 Black Waltzes, Black Waltz number 3 is the most powerful, utilising powerful magic with a preference for Thunder and Thundara compared to other spells. It is capable of flight that gives it an edge in battle. While being the most powerful, Black Waltz number 3 is also the most arrogant, seeing himself above the other Black Mages and the party. This arrogance is his downfall, and the party are able to defeat him, but this causes his programming to malfunction, and he gives chase on the Jester's ship. He tries to attack Vivi, who blasts him with a powerful fire spell to knock him out of the way, resulting in Vivi collapsing. The Black Waltz follows into Southgate and tries to attack the cargo ship one more time, but it causes his ship to catch fire and he crashes into Southgate, causing its destruction. The party make it to Limblum, and after being welcomed by Regent Sid, they disband to go do what they want. Vivi explores the city on his own and sees some children playing with royal action figures. He compares the Black Mages to toys being controlled by someone else, leading him to once again question his existence and wonder if he is like the other Black Mages he met. It isn't until after the events in Limblum that we begin to learn the true purpose of the Black Mages. A Burmesian soldier enters the throne room, barely able to hold on to give the message to Regent Sid. Steeple-height demons have attacked Burmesia and they need assistance. Knowing that the barrels containing Black Mages were bound for Alexandria, Garnet says that she wants to go with Zidane and the others to Burmesia to find out what her mother is up to. Zidane, Steiner and Regent Sid tell her she must remain there, but she drugs them and leaves with Steiner, not worrying about the possible consequences of the war that is starting. The remaining party and their new recruit Quina head to Giza Maluk's grotto in order to reach Burmesia. It is at this point we witness the true nature of the Black Mages, as they mercilessly kill the Burmesian soldiers trying to stop them. Zorn and Thorn appear, showing Alexandria's involvement with the Black Mages. They were created as weapons for war, an infinite supply of magical troops created from mist. The party battle through many Black Mages before escaping Giza Maluk's grotto, only to be met by scenes of devastation once they reach Burmesia, as its citizens lay dead and the Black Mages scream, "Kill," at the top of their lungs. Vivi is accused of working with them, but Freya stands up for him before they enter the palace. In the throne room of the Burmesian palace, we learn that Queen Bran is being supplied Black Mages by Kuja in order to fulfill her greedy and selfish ambitions. Nothing will stand in her way to claim victory over the kingdoms of the Mist Continent, stopping them from rising up against her and Alexandria and taking each of their royal jewels as her own. The party are defeated by Beatrix, and we switch over to Garnet, Steiner and Marcus, who are trying to get to Trino. The cable car stops on the tracks, where the driver runs back in saying that there is a demon outside. Garnet and Steiner realise what it is and rush out with Marcus, where Black Waltz number 3, the one that crashed into South Gate, walks forward. Completely mangled and losing all sense of itself, other than its mission to take Princess Garnet back to the castle. Garnet questions the Black Waltz as to why it wants her, but it is unable to answer and attacks the party, trying to take the princess back once again, finally being killed by the party and ending its suffering. Marcus states that he heard Bermesia was attacked by Black Mages, and that Queen Bran is behind it, which upsets Steiner, but Garnet says she knows who is behind it before they continue on to Trino. This brings us back to Zidane. After the party's defeat, they fear the safety of Clara and the remaining Bermesians who took refuge in the settlement. Once they climb the trunk of the tree, all seems fine in the Clara settlement as the sandstorm keeps them safe from the Alexandrian forces, leaving the Bermesians and Clarans to live together for the first time in hundreds of years. However, the Bermesians who escape see Vivi and hurl abuse at him, not caring that he hasn't done anything wrong. They truly fear Black Mages after what their entire kingdom went through, and do not see Vivi as the one that Freya defended. After the party defeat the Antlion and the sandstorm disappears, the party head down the tree, only to be attacked by Alexandrian soldiers. Puck warns them of an invasion occurring in the settlement, as Black Mages are being teleported directly into the town. The party rush back up and they have to defeat Black Mages who are programmed to kill once again. Zidane must lead as many townspeople to safety as possible, sending them in the right direction in order to reach safety. Zidane and any survivors become surrounded by Black Mages in front of the cathedral, only for Sir Fratley to arrive to dispatch the group, rescuing them and reuniting with Freya after many years. After a short and heartbreaking reunion, Beatrix appears to steal the Desert Star and once again defeats the party. She retreats back to the Red Rose with the Black Mages, teleporting right to the ship. Zidane, Vivi and Freya follow, leaving Quina to run down the trunk if they are in the party at this point. Queen Bran uses Odin that she extracted from Garnet and devastates Clara. Returning to Alexandria from the Red Rose, battling some Black Mages after rescuing Garnet, and ending up at the Pinnacle Rocks, Zidane, Vivi and Garnet decide to head to Limblum that is close by, only to see Queen Bran launch another assault, teleporting Black Mages directly into the castle to kill as many soldiers and civilians as possible, and destroy the Limblum airships, finishing her attack with the summoning of Atomos. Zidane, Vivi and Garnet try to sneak into Limblum, but they tell Vivi to wait behind to keep him safe. However, he is captured and taken to Regent Sid after Zidane and Garnet arrive at the castle. Sid explains that Kuja was the one who supplied Bran with Black Mages. He goes on to state that Kuja was seen coming from the northern continent, and Vivi decides to go with them to face Kuja for what he has done. After this, Zidane, Vivi and Garnet arrive at Q's Marsh and rejoin with Quina, who accidentally finds a way to Fosseru, so they can head to the outer continent. When the party reaches Conde Petit, the dwarves don't seem surprised by Vivi at all, saying he is a small one, which makes Vivi curious as to why they aren't scared. That is until we see an ATE showing a Black Mage arriving into Conde Petit. Zidane goes into the shop and sees the Black Mage who flees running past Vivi and out of the settlement. Thinking they were followed by Bran, the dwarves explain that the Pinty Hats live in the forest south of them, and they often come to Conde Petit to trade, stating that they live so deep in the forest that even owls don't go there. Using this hint about the owls, the party follow the Black Mage deep into the forest, where they discover the existence of the hidden Black Mage village, filled with many sentient Black Mages just like Vivi, each one terrified that they had been discovered by humans. While Zidane, Garnet and Quina venture around the village talking to the residents, Vivi ends up in a section of the village where two Black Mages stand near a scarecrow. Vivi questions them about what they are doing there, and they explain that they and every Black Mage in the village escaped Alexandria and the cargo ship, finding their way across the ocean to get away from humans, where they settled deep in the forest. It is unknown how they found this location, but rumours spread across the Mist continent between the sentient Black Mages, and they all travel to the Black Mage village to start a new life. Vivi asks what the monument is that they built, to which Mr. 288 states that it is a cemetery. Vivi realises it is the resting place for the other Black Mages, and Mr. 56 says he came here with his friend Mr. 36, and one day he just stopped moving. But he doesn't quite understand the concept of death, and expects Mr. 36 to pop out of the ground again one day. Confused, Vivi asks Mr. 288 what he means, and at this point Vivi runs off upset. Zidane can go and talk to Mr. 288, who explains how he suddenly just woke up. That it is like being born. You don't know that it happens, but you suddenly become aware. This is the same with the Black Mages. They just suddenly become aware one day, each with their own story of how it happened. Like Mr. 288, who woke up with a human body laying next to him, covered in blood. He was so frightened that he ran away with others who had woken up at that time, and together they escaped to the village. It isn't until that night when Vivi leaves the inn that we learn the truth. He returns to the cemetery where Mr. 288 is waiting. Vivi is curious as to how many Black Mages have stopped moving, and Mr. 288 tells Vivi that he believes that Black Mages have a short lifespan. Each roughly stops moving around a year after their production. He says he is scared to die, but the joy of living in the village outweighs his fear of death. That he has found meaning in life, and asks Vivi if that's how he feels travelling with the others. The following morning, Vivi arrives and says that the other Black Mages want him to continue on with his journey, to see the world and experience life as much as he can. This leads us further into the story when we can see an ATE of Vivi talking to himself in Sari. He says that Mr. 288 told him to figure out what it means to live and to die, and how he thought stopping and dying were two different things. This begins Vivi's existential crisis, wondering where people come from and where they go when they die, and how he is frightened to learn what will happen to him. He tells Zidane he doesn't want to keep feeling like this, but doesn't explain the possibility of him dying. Zidane tells him he's different, and he can continue to worry or not, it's his choice, and then both of them do a tinkle under the night sky. The day after, Zidane, Vivi, Garnet and Aiko head to the Ether Tree to find the source of the mist. There, we learn the awful truth about the origins of the Black Mages. Deep inside, the soul cage reveals that the mist is not produced, but a byproduct of the soul refining process. Kuja put it to a different use by using it to create weapons of war, the Black Mages. However, the soul cage puts a conundrum forth to the party. If he is defeated, no more mist would flow, but no more Black Mages would be created. But if he lives, then the Black Mages will continue to be created, but still used as instruments of destruction. Vivi makes the heartbreaking decision to kill the soul cage, preventing any further production of Black Mages, and stopping them being used as weapons for war. Something that Vivi has to do on behalf of the Black Mages in the village. He feels like they will hate him for his decision, as Vivi essentially doomed the Black Mages to extinction. After the events of Sari and bringing Amaranth along to the Ether Tree, Vivi finally gets to confront Kuja, asking him if it was he who created the Black Mages into instruments of war. To which Kuja mocks him, telling the party how black magic is combined into the mist to create puppets from the dregs of souls to form the Black Mages. This leads into the final event of Disc 2, with the death of Queen Bran. Vivi doesn't know how to feel about it. He feels sad for Garnet, but angry for what Queen Bran did and how she used the Black Mages. As we start Disc 3, the Black Mages story slows down for a while. We control Vivi around Alexandria, but it doesn't add any development to his story or revolve around him being a Black Mage. However, when we're in Trino, Vivi bumps into the attendant of the noble who got into Alexandria at the start of the game, and from there, we're able to send him to Quan's dwelling, the place where he was raised prior to the events of the game, where he can reminisce about his time with his grandpa. It isn't until after the events of the destruction of Alexandria that the Black Mages story continues. We learn that Kuja was seen with the sentient Black Mages, and we return to the village to learn that they left with Kuja. Only Mr. 288 and the two Black Mages taking care of the Chocobo egg remain. Kuja promised the Black Mages that he could extend their lifespan, getting them all to follow him in hopes of getting them to live longer. Mr. 288 refuses to tell Vivi where they are, and he goes to the Chocobo shack, where the Choco Chick finally hatches. The two Black Mages begin to feel happiness and excitement, and Vivi realizes Mr. 288 stayed because he was worried about the egg. It is here Zidane discovers that Vivi does not have much time left, and that as a prototype, Vivi has a longer lifespan than the rest, but not much longer. Vivi explains that he is more than just a puppet. He is a living being, saying he felt sad when he saw Garnet crying for her mother. Vivi tells him how much he hates Kuja, and we learn the location of the Black Mages, Kuja's palace. Inside, 2 Black Mages stand either side of the teleporter, sending Zidane and 3 party members to Kuja's chamber before they ascend to Aelver, while others are seen working on the Hilda Guard, operating it like they had with the cargo ship. Upon the return from Aelver and the escape of those left behind, Kuja leaves with Aiko and the Black Mages to Estergaza, where they follow him into the extinct volcano. The party head inside to rescue them and Aiko before her Eidolons are extracted, but after Aiko calls forth an Eidolon to defeat the Jesters, Vivi chases after Kuja while the others fight Melter Gemini. Upon the conclusion of the battle, Vivi reveals that the Black Mages knew Kuja was lying to them. They had just hoped it was true because they were scared of dying. They say they were fools for believing him because he was unable to extend their lifespan. Eventually, the Black Mages return to their village, still scared of what is to come. From here, there's very little development in terms of the Black Mage's story, or for Vivi's role as a Black Mage for the rest of Disc 3. It isn't until after the destruction of Terra that we once again see the Black Mages at the beginning of Disc 4. Due to their similar circumstances, the Black Mages welcome the Genomes into their home and get them used to life on Gaia in the best way that they can. This is the last we see of the Black Mages as part of the main story. Between the party escaping the final boss and the events that follow, the mist is completely removed from Gaia, but somehow, the Black Mages have managed to find a way to continue on. They did not go extinct as we expected. We see Vivi appear in Alexandria on his way to another play at the castle, in the same way the game begins. He even bumped into Puck, and we learn that this is not Vivi, but his son. As many more Vivi-looking Black Mages arrive from off screen, to the shock of Puck. It would seem that Vivi lost his life during this period, but they were able to find a way to create new Black Mages. We never learn why, but we can assume with the crystal now free from the Ether Tree's roots, it was able to accept the memories of the Black Mages that passed away from the souls that passed through it, allowing the crystal to birth them into existence with a longer lifespan, making them beings within the natural cycle of Gaia's rebirth. As to why the Black Mages suddenly gained true sentience, it isn't really explained, but one theory can come from how they were created. We know that souls return to the crystal upon their death, but with the Ether Tree absorbing them and refining them into mist, Kuja creates his own plan and utilizes the mist for his own gain, creating the Black Mages and imbuing them with magic, allowing them to be used as weapons for war. Due to them being made from mist, which is just the byproduct of the soul refining process, it is possible that some of the person's soul was still intact. It has no memories of its past, just that it is aware and capable of conscious thought, like an infant becoming aware for the first time and learning the ways of the world. In a sense, Kuja created his own cycle of rebirth. By finding an alternate use for the mist, he inadvertently made new life instead of just tools of war. The Black Mages were created from those that died, being rebirthed into the world in another way. This would eventually lead the Black Mages to create their own society, allowing them to truly live once again and creating memories of their own. So thanks to Kuja, he not only created new life from the cycle of disruption that Garland had in place, he allowed it to continue on in its own cycle of rebirth as part of the souls became Black Mages, eventually leading them to be able to live as part of Gaia's natural cycle of rebirth. And before I bring this chapter of the Black Mages to a close, I want to read Vivi's final monologue in its entirety. I always talked about you, Zidane, how you are a very special person to us, because you taught us all how important life is. You taught me that life doesn't last forever. That's why we have to help each other and live life to the fullest. Even if you say goodbye, you'll always be in our hearts. So, I know we're not alone anymore. Why I was born, how I wanted to live. Thanks for giving me time to think. To keep doing what you set your heart on. It's a very hard thing to do. We were all so courageous. What to do when I felt lonely? That was the only thing you couldn't teach me. But we need to figure out the answers for ourselves. I'm so happy I met everyone. I wish we could have gone on more adventures. But I guess we all have to say goodbye someday. Everyone, thank you. Farewell. My memories will be part of the sky. After losing his life, Vivi's soul made it to the crystal. We don't know if his was the first Black Mage soul to reach the crystal, but his memories helped welcome the Black Mages into Gaia's cycle of rebirth. Once doomed to extinction, they can now thrive for generations to come, and thanks to Vivi's memories, he may have even helped the genomes. Unlike the Black Mages who were created 1 year before the events of the game, genomes first appeared 3,000 years prior to the start of Final Fantasy IX. However, we need to go back even further to understand why. After the Terrans put their souls in stasis and the failed fusion occurred, the plan to convert Gaia's crystal from blue to red was put in place. Garland was tasked with this and used the Ch.3 to get Gaia back to a point where life could thrive, which took roughly 2,000 years. From there, he began the creation of the genomes, putting us roughly 3,000 years before the events of Final Fantasy IX. It is not known how Garland went about this, but as Terra was such an advanced civilization, we can imagine that they cracked the way to create life without the use of their crystal, just like Kuja had with the Black Mages. The genomes were created as vessels for the Terran souls once the conversion of Gaia was complete. As such, they were made into soulless beings, easily manipulated to fulfill a variety of tasks that would keep them mentally and physically sharp, preparing them for the time that a soul will be infused into them. They see themselves as nothing more than a means to an end in Garland's ultimate plan. As Terra was transported to inside of Gaia, the genomes were made to endure the constant presence of Gaia's blue light from its crystal, which shined directly above them. 3 types of genomes were created, one to fit a male role, another to fit a female role, and finally a child genome to represent both. Despite the slight differences for the 3 types, the genomes were all created identically, each with the same hair colour, overall same hairstyle, and most notably, a monkey-like tail. The genomes are ageless. They are created at the size that we see them at. They do not start in an infant state, and they are unable to age past their current forms. Only once they receive a soul will their bodies begin to age and grow. It is never mentioned if they are immortal, just that time does not flow for them, and with no soul, they will not die and return to the crystal to take Terra closer to death. For thousands of years, the genomes went about their tasks, fulfilling their duties in preparation for the day that they will be made whole. Everything was going exactly as planned, until peace began to reign on Gaia, bringing the plan to a halt. Garland had to speed up the process, and so in the Gaian calendar of 1776, a powerful genome was given the gift of life on Terra, one that was built to speed up the process of bringing death to the Gaians via war, Kuja. Unlike the rest of the genomes, Kuja was given a soul, and this gave him his narcissistic nature and complex to see himself better than any of the other genomes, stating that he wasn't like any of those guys. It is unknown when he began to change his appearance, but Kuja hid his genome features to show he was different from the others and denying who he truly was. However, Garland deemed Kuja a failure. As he did not grow up and experience childhood, Kuja did not gain the necessary experiences needed to enter trance. Thus, he could not complete his task as an Angel of Death successfully. But regardless of this, Kuja ventured to Gaia and began to manipulate matters across the Mist Continent, aiding in the plan to send souls to the Ch.3. Despite his abilities and strong mind, Garland was not able to control Kuja and decided that his services as an Angel of Death would only be temporary, creating Kuja with a short lifespan. 8 years later, Garland would go on to perfect this project, creating another genome with a soul, but this time as a baby, so that it would grow and develop the necessary emotions and life experiences to enter trance, becoming the true Angel of Death and superior to Kuja. This genome was Zidane. Kuja felt threatened by this small genome and his role as the new Angel of Death. He became jealous and wanted to prove his superiority over Zidane, and so he kidnapped him and abandoned him on Gaia. Angry at Kuja's behaviour, Garland banished Kuja from returning to Terra, but still used his skills to continue to incite war on Gaia, while living lavishly in the Desert Palace and frequenting Trino as a noble. At this time, Zidane was found by Baku of the Tantalus Theatre Troupe at the age of 4, and welcomed into the family, unbeknownst to him of his true purpose. The only memory he had of his home was a strange blue light that comes from Gaia's crystal. He became a thief as well as a performer within the troupe, learning the tricks of the trade from Baku. In 1790, Garland's fear of the summoners and their eidolons got the better of him, and he tasked Kuja with wiping them out. Doing so without question, Kuja used the Invincible to devastate the summoners and begin his scheme of destroying Garland once and for all. His plan? To use an eidolon so powerful it would overpower Garland. And so he continued to play the part of the Angel of Death as to not arouse suspicion to his master plan. While Kuja continued his task, Zidane went out to find where he came from and left Tantalus and Limbum behind. For 2 years he searched, unable to discover anything about his home or the blue light that was in his memory. At some point during this journey, he met Freya and became friends with her before returning to Limbum in 1798, welcomed back by Baku, who beat him for leaving. Zidane remained with the group as a thief once more. In the same year, Zidane stole from the king's mansion in Trino, the same mansion that Kuja may have been the owner of, but this was never fully confirmed. There he meets Amaranth for the first time and tricks the gods into believing he is the thief and escapes. In 1799, Kuja goes to Alexandria in order to become a weapon supplier for Queen Bran. It's stated that Kuja knew the processes of creating genomes and applied the same principle to his own creations, bringing the first Black Mages into being, helping push Gaia's cycle of rebirth further out of alignment, while aiding in changing its crystal red. As we know from the Black Mages segment, Queen Bran openly accepted this offer and began preparations for her conquest of the Mist Continent. All was going to Kuja's plan, he just needed one more thing: eidolons. However, a large spanner was going to come into play, messing up his plans as Princess Garnet began to notice changes in her mother, mysterious barrels, and Kuja himself. A few months later, Kuja manages to find Lady Hilda, who had turned Sid into an Oglop and absconded from Limbum on the Hildegard. He kidnaps Lady Hilda and steals the airship in the process, using it to get around without his silver dragon. He speaks often to Lady Hilda, telling her his plans and how he is from another world, explaining all this to Hilda voluntarily. While over on Terra, Garland begins to feel a change in Zidane. In this instance, he creates yet another genome with a soul, Mikoto, who was built to guide Zidane upon his return to Terra. But this was not her only purpose. In the possibility that both Kuja and Zidane fail in their task, Mikoto was to take their place as a third Angel of Death. However, as she was created at her current form in the same way Kuja was, she would not have the necessary memories and life experiences to enter trance like Zidane, making her expendable in Garland's eyes, as he would likely need to create another genome as a baby and wait for them to age. This brings us to the year 1800 and the beginning of Final Fantasy IX. Flying into Alexandria on the theatre ship, Tantalus is charged with kidnapping the princess during the performance of I Want to Be Your Canary. However, after Zidane chases Garnet around the castle, she explains she wants them to kidnap her and take her to Limbum. Zidane promises to kidnap her, which does not go as planned. Garnet's identity is revealed and Queen Bran shoots down the theatre ship, landing in the evil forest. Zidane rushes to find Garnet, who has been captured by the plant cage. This is where Garland's true plan for Zidane begins to take fruition. Thanks to growing up on Gaia, he has gained enough life experience to trance, activated by his emotions and feelings towards Garnet, despite just meeting her. With this power, he is able to defeat the plant cage easily. Like I did with Vivi in the Black Mage segment of this video, I will only be covering events that revolve around Zidane as a genome. However, as he is unaware of his origins until we reach Terra, there are only a few examples of this. The first after leaving the Evil Forest is the encounter with Black Waltz number 1. While its blizzard rages in the ice cavern, all 4 party members pass out, but after hearing the Black Waltz's bell, Zidane awakens. He is questioned how he did not pass out like the others, which is never truly explained, but this is due to him being a genome. Either the Black Waltz's spell did not affect Zidane's Terran soul in the same way as the Gaian souls of Vivi, Garnet and Steiner, or because Zidane's genome anatomy allows him to pick up frequencies that other races may not be able to hear, waking him up when he heard the tones of the Black Waltz's bell. Whatever the case is, it allows Zidane to fight and defeat it. It isn't until the end of Disc 1 that another event like this occurs. After heading to the Bemetian Palace, we are introduced to Kuja for the first time in the story, revealing that he supplied Bran with the Black Mages. This is an incredibly important interaction between Zidane and Kuja, as it is the first time they have seen each other since Kuja abandoned him on Gaia. But after their defeat at the hands of Beatrix, he does not reveal that he knows Zidane, only stating, "This boy could be a problem," before flying off on his silver dragon. While Garnet is trying to make her way back to Alexandria and find the Super Soft to help save Blank, she sees Kuja sat on a balcony of the auction house and recognises him, but she can't place where from. After she leaves, Kuja speaks to the auctioneer and says he will welcome her back to Alexandria with open arms, which puts the next step of his ultimate plan into action. Garnet is captured on her return to the castle, and Kuja walks in while she speaks to her mother. He uses magic to put her to sleep so that Queen Bran can obtain her Eidolons and devastate the other kingdoms, which she does successfully. We learn that Kuja flew from the north on a silver dragon, leading the party to follow him to the outer continent and finding the Black Mage village. On the night Vivi discovers the truth about his origins, Zidane tells Garnet the story of him leaving Tantalus to find his own home, telling her about the blue light from his memories that he was unable to find and returning to Baku 2 years later. The next genome event doesn't occur until Zidane, Vivi, Garnet and Aiko enter the Ether Tree. Reaching the center platform, they see the Terran symbol emblazoned to the ground, but at this point it means nothing to them. It is only when Zidane taps the platform that it seems to respond, resonating with his genome DNA. Standing on it, it glows once again and begins to descend, revealing that it is some sort of lift. This once again occurs as we head further into the interior of the Ether Tree. Towards the deepest depths of the Ether Tree sits a leaf-like platform. Aiko tries to stand on it, but it does not respond like the one above. All 4 party members stand on it, and the platform begins to rise and move, blocking any wind from sending the party flying to their deaths, once again resonating with Zidane's genome or even Terran DNA. Although the Soul Cage doesn't explain the full extent of what the Ether Tree is for, it does explain how Kuja was manipulating it to create Black Mages, adding to his ultimate plan of taking down Garland. However, the party put an end to this and stopped the flow of the mist and prevent any more Black Mages from being produced, which forces Kuja to come to the Ether Tree. Kuja mocks Zidane about his lack of knowledge around his purpose, before explaining to Garnet that he just gave Queen Bran a little push to get her to start her conquest. Shocked, Garnet exclaims that she was kind and sweet before the Queen arrives to kill Kuja, summoning Bahamut to take him out. This plan backfires, and Kuja takes control of Bahamut using the Invincible, using him to destroy the Alexandrian fleet and killing Queen Bran before he once again escapes. While Garnet prepares for her coronation and Zidane drowns his sorrows, Kuja finds the location of the Black Mage village as he has no means of creating more. Using their fear of death against them and promising to extend their life, they follow him onto the Hildegard and he flies to Alexandria under the cover of night, calling forth Bahamut and sending in Mystodons to deal with the townspeople. Kuja attacks Alexandria, all for his ultimate prize, Alexander. With the power of this ancient Eidolon, he will be able to finally destroy Garland once and for all, calling down the Invincible to enslave it as he had done with Bahamut. Unbeknownst to Kuja, Garland had taken control of the Invincible and put a stop to this insubordination, cursing Kuja's name, stating he has no idea who he is defying. He even mentions Zidane by name, adding more mystery to who Zidane truly is, as at this point we are still unaware of his origins. Garland changes the Invincible's control beam into one of devastation in order to explode Alexander, before he retreats, believing he had killed Kuja. However, Kuja is seen escaping on the Hildegard with the Black Mages back to the Desert Palace. The party learn the location of the Desert Palace and end up being captured in the process. With his plan to enslave Alexander in ruins, Kuja has to find another Eidolon to take out Garland. Knowing that Mount Gulag used to house one, he decides he will use Zidane in order to get the key to the extinct volcano. By threatening his friends, Kuja forces Zidane to go to Aelver, a place he cannot enter due to the anti-magic field that surrounds it. With no choice other than to help him, Zidane and 3 party members head to the Terran archive, Aelver, to get what Kuja is asking for. Standing in front of the large locked door to Aelver, Zidane unknowingly opens the way once again due to his Terran DNA. It is here that we begin to learn the truth of what has been happening to Gaia and Terra's plan. Words in the Terran language appear across holograms that Zidane is able to decipher. He learns that an advanced society known as Terra is going through something called the Decline, while strange heads recite their recordings on what occurred when Terra fused with other worlds in order to revitalise its crystal and stop it from dying. None of this means anything to Zidane, or why Kuja wanted him to see this. After a tough battle with Ark, Zidane acquires the Gulag Stone and returns to Kuja's palace. Zidane heads back to Kuja's quarters alone, where he sees what he believes to be the other party members who were left behind, hurt and trapped in a cage. That is until the other party members rush in minus Aiko, who was locked out and kidnapped by Zorn and Thorn. Kuja steals the Gulag Stone and rushes to Estogaza to enact the next phase of his plan, taking Aiko as a contingency, in case he cannot find any Eidolons. Inside the volcano, Kuja is unable to find any Eidolons and resorts to his alternate plan to have Aiko's Eidolons extracted, but this ends up being unsuccessful. Mog enters trance and kills the Jesters, making Kuja realise if a Moogle is able to trance, then he doesn't need the power of Eidolons, he just needs to attain trance for himself. Kuja flees to set his new plan into motion, and it is here that Lady Hilda is discovered, finally being rescued after her capture from before the story began. In Limblum, she explains that Kuja opened up to her, revealing to her all about his origins and how there is a warp to Terra located on Gaia. With the way to Terra open, the party head to this other world. After going through the warp point at the Shimmering Isle, they arrive on Terra, where Zidane is greeted by what he thinks is a Terran, someone who looks exactly like him. The party follow this person who drops cryptic hints towards Zidane all the way to Brambal, the Terran city filled with people identical to himself. It is here that Zidane learns of his origins, and that he is from Terra, and that he somehow was sent to Gaia, but he still is unaware of how. He learns that these people are called Genomes, who all speak in a monotonous tone due to their lack of a soul, except for the genome he first met, Mikoto, the 3rd Angel of Death. The Genomes all have great knowledge on the cycle of souls, as Garland made sure this information circulated between them, preventing mental decay, preparing them physically and mentally for the process of receiving a soul. We begin to learn the true nature of what they are, and as we do, Zidane begins to unravel, trying to keep his happy-go-lucky attitude, but unable to do so as his world crumbles around him. He is sent to Pandemonium by Mikoto, where he meets Garland and his reason for being is revealed to him. That he is meant to be an angel of death on Gaia, one that would disrupt the cycle of souls and make it possible for the Terran souls to be reborn into the Genomes, where they will inhabit Gaia after its crystal changes colour. He discovers that Kuja is essentially his brother, and that because of his narcissistic and ambitious nature, he abandoned Zidane on Gaia to prove himself better than him. Garland explains the true purpose of the Ether Tree, and how stopping the mist did nothing to halt his plan, offering to Zidane to return to his side as Kuja's life will end soon. Zidane refuses to join him, stating he will be an angel of death to Garland for threatening the world and people that he loves. Garland breaks Zidane and attempts to remove his soul, but he is unable to. However, the revelations of what he truly is have done severe damage to Zidane's psyche. Each of the party members appears before him as he begins to question his identity and his ability to help and teach those he cares about, becoming depressed and going through his own existential crisis. Zidane wakes up to see Vivi and Aiko, who had arrived to help him, but he becomes irate, walking past them and tells Vivi to shut up. He ends up in a battle where Freya and Amaranth arrive to help him, but once again he walks off after they attempt to talk to him. Steiner and Quina are attacked and fight together. Zidane helps them, but only so that he can get past them, stating he wants them to leave him alone. It isn't until he fights on his own and Garnet arrives that he begins to see sense. Together they defeat the Shell Dragon, and Zidane tries to explain to her that he is meant to be the destroyer of Gaia. He can't accept their friendship so easily because he would have ended up killing them if he was used for his true purpose. But Garnet, Steiner and Quina help bring him around, showing that they truly care about him and helping end his depressed state. Due to his programming of Zidane, the memories, experiences and relationships he developed throughout his life made it impossible for his soul to be removed. Zidane had become the powerful entity Garland wanted him to be, becoming one of the reasons for his downfall as they defeat him in battle. Kuja arrives, who was seen earlier arriving back on Terra, claiming the Invincible after Garland took it. Knowing Kuja's nature, Garland sees that Kuja is up to something, but he states he is fighting to defeat the enemies of Terra, only for his ploy to be achieved, to enter trance. Unable to do so himself, Kuja absorbed the souls of those trapped within the Invincible to finally attain the ability to trance, with each of the souls fueling him further. Kuja lords his power over both Zidane and Garland, asking if Garland has any last words, who states to Kuja that he is not all-powerful, before Kuja kicks him from atop the platform. Thinking he was victorious over both Garland and Zidane, Garland speaks out and explains that Kuja is a defect, one with a short lifespan that was there to last until Zidane grew and fully awakened his powers. The revelation that he will soon die is too much for him to bear. In the end, Kuja is just like the Black Mages. The irony that Kuja, their creator, is just the same as them, created for a single purpose and one that must be done with a short lifespan. He begins to break down with thanatophobia, developing intense fears of dying and trying to deny it. In the end, he decides to destroy Terra with his newfound power of trance, unleashing Ultima spells in every direction. While the party find a way to get out of Terra, Zidane and Garnet head to Bramble to tell the Genomes what is happening, and have them sent to the Invincible. Zidane finds Mikoto in the lab. She had given up hope and explains to Zidane the purpose of her existence, but without Garland, there is nothing. Zidane is able to convince her to keep on living, and they make it back to Gaia on the Invincible, only to discover that the entire planet is covered in mist. Due to their similarities, Vivi suggests that the Genomes go live with the Black Mages, so that they may be able to learn from each other, and the Black Mages may be able to help transition the Genomes to life on Gaia, despite their limited knowledge. Mikoto states to Zidane that they do not have a chance of defeating Kuja, but Zidane dismisses this, stating that she's a bit cynical, and asks the Black Mages to take care of his little sister, before they depart to finish their journey. Kuja's ultimate plan is to head through Memoria and destroy the crystal, the one that gives life to everything. He believes if he cannot live, then why does existence deserve to continue? Zidane and the others make it past Kuja's defences and begin to battle him once again. Even in trance, Kuja's powers aren't enough to fend off the combined efforts of the party. In a last-ditch attempt to try and kill everyone and everything as he will die soon, Kuja uses Ultima to attempt to destroy the crystal, even though he is scared to die. This fear of death and emptiness he feels is what calls forth Necron. Zidane stands up to Necron, and together the party are able to defeat it. In the moments of this climactic battle, Kuja truly realizes what it is to live and saves the party from Necron's onslaught, teleporting them outside the Ether Tree to safety. Mikoto, who is on the Red Rose, hears the party are alive and that they are by the roots. As Sid heads to collect the party in the Hildegard 3, Kuja lets out one last goodbye to Zidane. Not wanting to leave his brother behind, Zidane leaves the party in an attempt to rescue Kuja, who finally realizes that he could have had a sense of belonging and individuality. It is unknown what happens to him from this point, as the Ether Tree's roots crush both Zidane and Kuja, only showing Zidane in the final moments of the game reuniting with the party. It is assumed that Kuja either died in that moment or soon after due to his short lifespan. After Zidane and Kuja are crushed under the roots, we see Mikoto arrive at the Ether Tree. She speaks as if she is talking to Kuja, that even though what he did was wrong, his actions gave her and the genomes hope. The genomes were created for the wrong reasons, in a way to continue life but in the wrong way, making them expendable. Kuja was an exception to this at the time, showing that he could prove a genome's fate could be defied and they could live how they wanted, giving them a memory that could live on forever. Like the Black Mages and the cycle of rebirth Kuja unintentionally created, he was also the catalyst that may have been enough for the genomes to gain their own identity, that they do have a reason beyond their programming to live, and that they do have meaning. The souls of Kuja, Vivi, and the other Black Mages who died after meeting the genomes may have been enough to influence the crystal with their memories, to show that they became one with Gaia, allowing them to live a life with a soul, along with the Black Mages as part of the natural cycle of Gaia's rebirth. Now we've covered the history and story of the Black Mages and Genomes, I want to break down their own cycles of rebirth to show how they differ to that of the other races found throughout the Final Fantasy IX universe. We know what the natural cycle of rebirth looks like. A soul is born from the World Crystal. This life gains memories and life experiences. The life dies and the soul returns to the World Crystal, which sorts its memories, resulting in the cycle of rebirth. This is how Gaia, Terra, and any other world should process their souls and memories. However, due to Garland's effect on Gaia's cycle, souls never make it back to the crystal. Instead, it is sent to the Ether Tree, ripped apart and distributed as mist. This gives Kuja the opportunity to use his knowledge of how genomes are created to make his own beings, the Black Mages, creating mist eggs that hatched into dolls, which were infused with black magic, bringing them to life. The more black magic infused, the more powerful the Black Mage. For many Black Mages, they undergo an awakening caused by a traumatic event, bringing their soul to the surface and they become their own being. This leads to their sorrowful fate, as they can only last roughly a year. Once the black magic has run out, the soul separates and dissipates due to it being made of soul fragments, which happens regardless if the Black Mage is awoken or not, resulting in a broken cycle as they never get to return to the crystal. The party even stopped the mist, halting the production of Black Mages and leaving any currently alive to die soon due to their short lifespan, causing their eventual extinction. Once Gaia's crystal is released from the Ether Tree's roots, those whose souls have memories of the Black Mages are returned to it, allowing Gaia's world crystal to sort these memories of the Black Mages, birthing them into existence where they acquire their own memories, which will eventually return to the crystal, completing the Black Mages cycle of rebirth. Now comparatively, the genome cycle of rebirth is just as complicated. With Terra's crystal close to death, the Terrans create Garland and put their souls in stasis, so that no new souls are born from it or sent back to it, preventing further decline. This would lead Garland to eventually create the genomes. However, they are nothing more than empty vessels incapable of aging or growth. They have no individuality, programmed to fill their duties, and are imparted with vast knowledge of the cycle of souls, only for them to be imbued with a Terran soul once the time was right, which would allow the Terrans to be reborn and return to the changed Gaian crystal upon their death, giving them a natural cycle of rebirth. But this means that the genome itself would die, because they are no longer an empty vessel, and as such, any knowledge and memories it did gain would be gone. Only 3 genomes were given a soul: Kuju, who was made with a short lifespan, Zidane as a baby to grow and attain memories, and Mikoto to replace Kuja and Zidane in case of failure. The rest of the genomes have waited thousands of years to be imbued with a soul, and they were never able to get that chance, so it isn't truly known if they expire or not, as time doesn't affect them. However, without a soul, they are incapable of having any effect on the cycle of rebirth. Once the party leave Terra with the genomes to Gaia, all of the Terran souls are lost. But this means there are those who have memories of the genomes. This could influence the crystal to sort memories of the genomes and have Gaia birth them into existence with a soul intact, finally giving them the life they deserved and not an empty vessel void of emotion and identity, completing their cycle of rebirth. Adding on to this, Makoto makes it seem like they are able to experience hope, and it may be a sign that they began to develop their own souls without being born with one, as this is a state and emotion that they aren't able to perceive, possibly allowing them to also become part of Gaia's cycle of rebirth. Before we move on to how the Black Mages and Genomes associate with Samsara, I want to quickly go over the parallels between the two races. While Black Mages and Genomes differ in appearance and personality, they both share a number of parallels to each other. As we know, Kuja created the Black Mages using his knowledge of the production of the genomes. He just had to make do with what he had on Gaia. So with this, we know that the processes of making them are similar. Some form of magic was used in order to make them, but with the genomes, we are not sure what it is as there is a lack of mist to create them. However, both the Black Mages and Genomes were made to serve one purpose each. The Black Mages were artificially created as weapons of war. They were made for nothing more than to cause death, while the Genome's artificial creation was to continue life with the Terrans once Gaia had been converted, showing how both were created as beings of life and death, but this made them expendable to Kuja and Garland's grand schemes. Despite the Black Mages being made from souls, and the Genomes having vast knowledge, they were created to be nothing more than puppets, but due to the events that occur in the story, we see that both are able to go beyond their main functions. Zidane and Vivi are shown to have parallels to each other. As the forefront for both races due to their status as main characters, they show both the Black Mages and Genomes hope. Vivi inspires the Black Mages to think beyond their programming and express themselves in their own way, to learn the true ways of the world, as Quan had done for him, while Zidane shows how the Genomes are not just empty vessels, and that they do have a purpose, even if they don't have a soul. There are even parallels between the Black Waltzes and the Angels of Death. While Kuja was unaware of Makoto's existence at the time of the creation of the Black Waltzes, both of these groups are represented by the number 3, a number of huge significance. The philosopher Pythagoras believed 3 to be the perfect number, both mathematically and conceptually, noticing that the sum of 3 parts make up the entirety of many things: past, present and future, beginning, middle and end, birth, life and death, and mind, body and soul, each applying to the Black Mages and Genomes in some form, but wholly represented by the divine power of 3 in the Black Waltzes and the Angels of Death. Both of these groups were made specifically to be different from the rest of their species. Kuja, Zidane and Makoto were all given incredible powers to help disrupt the cycle of souls, while the Black Waltzes were imbued with large amounts of black magic to make them more powerful than regular Black Mages. However, as they die early on, we do not get to see what other purpose they may have had outside of retrieving Garnet. Kuja, Zidane and Makoto have a soul, giving them their own personalities different to that of the rest of the Genomes. This seems to have occurred during the production of the Black Waltzes, as each has a malicious personality. This appears to have made them aware straight from birth, unlike the other Black Mages who had no consciousness, including Vivi. Finally, each of the Black Waltzes may represent an Angel of Death. While it is difficult to say who Black Waltz number 1 and 2 share elements with, Black Waltz number 3 shows very similar traits to Kuja. Even with the limited scenes Black Waltz number 3 has, he lords his power and status over the other Black Mages, showing his arrogant and narcissistic nature, not caring for his actions against his brethren, as more can be created, stating, "Do I look like some lowly Black Mage soldier to the party before being defeated?" Losing control, as Zorn and Thorn had made him too powerful, where he exclaims, "I exist only to kill," over and over. This could be seen as a parallel to Kuja's personality in decline. We learn from Garland that he doesn't see himself like the other Genomes, thinking himself better than them as well as seeing his disdain for the Black Mages. He was made only to kill and disrupt the cycle of souls in his own way, and even has a short lifespan, which results in him wanting to kill everything as it doesn't deserve to exist without him. Kuja's arrogance and narcissism are witnessed multiple times throughout the story. Whether it's towards the Gaians, Zidane or Garland, he looks down on everyone and everything, while living the high life in Trino and using the lavish desert palace as his residence. We could say that Black Mages and Genomes are two sides of the same coin. While they share many parallels, they represent the two separate elements that make up one being. The soul represented by the Black Mages, and the physical being shown by the Genomes. While they are incomplete beings in different ways, together they make up the essence of a complete existence, helping them live together in peace within the Black Mage village. Both groups were able to transcend their original purpose. They each have free will despite what Kuja and Garland thought. They prove that no matter how they were created, they could define their own lives. With this in mind, we can finally move on to their relevance to Samsara. In terms of Samsara, both the Black Mages and the Genomes could be seen as being part of the Hungry Ghost realm. While this might not make sense at first, you can look at it with a different interpretation. The Hungry Ghost realm is about excessive cravings and attachments. Those reborn in this realm are trapped thanks to their avarice in their previous life, forcing them into the Hungry Ghost realm to live out their negative karma, until one day they may be reborn into a life that does not focus on greed. The ghosts of this realm are shown with small mouths and distended stomachs, making it impossible for them ever to get enough food or water, constantly making them seek out more, but unable to satiate themselves. People will leave food and water for the spirits of the Hungry Ghost realm, to help them on their journey to rid themselves of negative karma, and to give them hope. There is even a festival known as the Hungry Ghost Festival, or the Zhongyuan Festival, where people will leave sacrifices of food to worship the spirits, hoping that they will leave them be while the gates of the underworld are open, which stems back to Buddhist and Taoist beliefs, giving them hope to one day end their suffering. The Black Mages are born from fragments of souls of the deceased. When a soul does not return to the crystal, there still appears to be a level of consciousness, causing anger and attachment to the world they inhabited, which is usually associated with spirits unable to move on. Those of the Hungry Ghost realm are unable to move on due to this attachment from their previous life. Even if we are unable to see them in the physical plane, they are said to surround us each day, which we can see throughout the belief of ghosts, and not just necessarily the hungry ghosts of Buddhism. The Black Mages are programmed to be killing machines. It is their only thought. In a way, they hunger to kill just like the souls of the Hungry Ghost realm hunger for food or water. They are without meaning until they awaken, and even then they hunger for an understanding of what it means to be alive, as well as having that attachment to keep on living. However, another take on this is that once a Black Mage awakens, they are reborn into the human realm because that hunger is gone, similar to how these spirits are reborn when their negative karma runs out. The Black Mages get the opportunity to live once again, even for a short period, to understand the world in their own way, and make up for past mistakes. This is a form of rebirth for the Black Mages, going from a soulless killer to a being with compassion and understanding, making their transition like that of the spirits in the Hungry Ghost realm. Comparatively, the Genomes also hunger for a sense of belonging and understanding. Unlike the Black Mages, the Genomes are created with sentience and logic so that they may carry out their duties and understand their sole purpose, waiting until the day that Gaia's light changes and they are fused with a Terran soul. They exist to only one day truly exist, like spirits waiting to be sent on to the other side, or in this case, reborn. Speaking to the Genomes, there is a sense that they hunger for true life, memories, and the right to be their own person. They are just forced to wait. In a sense, they crave existence even though it is what they are programmed for. This even applies to both Kuja and Zidane. Kuja craves the right to be his own person, separate from the other Genomes, thinking that power is the ultimate way to obtain this. Even after he discovers his fate, this attachment continues as he craves to keep on living. Zidane goes through something similar, craving to understand where he came from and his purpose for being. Another example could be seen how people leave food and water open for the spirits of the Hungry Ghost realm, essentially giving them hope that they will soon be reborn into a different realm. Both Zidane and Kuja give hope to the Genomes in different ways, giving them a reason to evolve and become their own being. If the plan had succeeded and the Terrans had taken over the genome's vessels, then they would have essentially been reborn into the human realm, but this would have ultimately killed the genome itself. Despite being devoid of a soul, they are still living beings with their own traits and sentience. A Terran being placed inside would have killed them. However, as we saw in the ending, the genomes seem to be developing an understanding beyond their programming, whether this is due to living with the Black Mages, or thanks to the hope given to them by Zidane and Kuja. This shows a sense of rebirth without the need of a soul, putting them in the human realm. Alternatively, we could say that the genomes start off in the hellish realm, linking back to where the Terrans would be placed due to their world dying and remaining in stasis. The genomes are tortured each day because of the blue light they are built to despise. The water stands still thanks to Gaia taking Terra's moon. It's an environment that causes them so much harm, but they are fortunate to leave. However, ultimately, until the game's conclusion, both the Black Mages and genomes sit firmly in the hungry ghost realm, to one day truly exist, and not hunger for understanding of what it means to be alive. And with that, we've come to the end of part 3 of this mini-series. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Black Mages and the genomes, because in the next episode, we're going to be delving into a being that has a huge effect on the cycle of rebirth, Garland, and I hope to see you there.